All right, so get ready to rethink how much time you spend sitting down, folks. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into all the ways that sitting, like even if you exercise a lot, impacts your health.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Right.
So we're diving into this New York Times article, Why Sitting All Day May Shorten Your Life.
Right.
Really interesting stuff. And I think, a lot of people think, well, hey, if I work out, I'm good.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a really common misconception, and I think this article does a great job at challenging that.
Oh, it totally does.
Yeah.
Like right away, it's like, bam. People with desk jobs have a 34% higher risk of dying from cardiovascular disease.
Yeah. And a 16% higher risk of overall mortality,
Wow.
which is,
Right.
pretty scary. And it's, something to really think about, because even if you exercise regularly, those risks, they don't just disappear.
So wait, even if I'm like hitting the treadmill after work, all that sitting is still like working against me. How does that even work?
Well, I mean, when you think about when you sit for a really long time, your blood flow slows down.
Okay.
And, that can lead to like a buildup of fatty deposits in your arteries, which obviously increases your risk of heart disease.
Mm-hmm.
The article mentions the American Heart Association, and they found that it only takes 30 minutes of sitting
What?
for your blood vessels to start feeling the effects.
Oh, wow.
So it's, basically like it's putting the brakes on your healthy blood flow.
30 minutes. Okay, so that's much more concrete than just like, oh, sitting's bad. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I thought the main thing, like with sitting, was heart health. This article's saying it's a lot more than that.
It is.
Yeah, it's kind of
like a domino effect.
yeah.
It really is. It links, prolonged sitting to joint problems, muscle loss, low energy. Your metabolism gets all messed up. It can affect your mental state. It's crazy how much it impacts your health.
So we really are like aging faster by sitting around too much.
Well, there's this biomechanist, Katie Bowman, who's quoted in the article, and I think she says it really well.
Okay.
She basically says a lot of what we blame on getting older is actually caused by how much time we spend sitting. So, like, you think about, lower back pain from, like, compressed discs in your spine, weak leg muscles.
Yeah.
That feeling like your glutes have disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
These are things we just kind of accept as part of aging.
Right.
But it can be made so much worse by just sitting too much.
Yeah.
No matter how old you are. It's really interesting.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I've definitely like felt that like lower back pain thing after just like a long day at my desk.
Yeah.
So we know sitting's like bad news, but
Yeah.
what really blows my mind is this idea that it can mess with your workouts.
Right.
Like I'm putting in the effort to exercise. Shouldn't that cancel out the sitting?
You would think so.
Right.
Unfortunately, no.
Oh.
The article talks about some studies that suggest people who sit a lot might need to double. Yeah, double the usual exercise recommendations
Wow.
to offset the effects.
So instead of 150 minutes a week, I got to do 300.
Yeah, seems like a lot.
That's a lot.
But when you think about it, we're burning about 100 fewer calories a day than people did 50 years ago.
Wow.
Just because we're sitting more.
It's like skipping a 30-minute walk every day.
It is. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, wow. That puts it into perspective. So sitting is the sneaky villain we never suspected.
It is.
It's messing with us in more ways than we realize, but is there any hope?
Yeah.
Like this can't just be about depressing us, right?
No, it's not all doom and gloom.
Okay, good.
The article does offer some strategies, but be prepared for some myth busting along the way.
Ooh, myth busting. I like it.
For example, those standing desks everyone's always talking about?
Yeah.
They're not a magic bullet?
Wait, really? I thought those were supposed to be like the answer.
You would think so. They do burn more calories than sitting,
Okay.
but they can also create problems like foot and back pain. Oh, okay.
If you don't use them properly. And let's be real, standing still for hours on end isn't that much better than sitting.
Right. Okay, so what's the solution? Should we just all quit our jobs and become yoga instructors on a beach somewhere?
I mean, that sounds good to me,
Right.
but probably not practical for most of us.
Okay.
I think the key takeaway here is that movement, in any form,
Okay.
is the antidote
Got it.
to the dangers of sitting.
More movement, less misery.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, but what does more movement look like when you're stuck in the office all day?
Right.
Like, how do you actually do that?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
We'll dig into that in the next part of our deep dive. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with more ways to combat sitting. All right, so we're back and ready to tackle this whole sitting thing head on.
Yeah.
But I got to be honest, the idea of adding even more exercise to my day, it's a little overwhelming. Like,
Right.
is there some kind of shortcut?
Well, there might be, and it's probably a lot simpler than you think. Remember how that article mentioned fidgeting?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that what we often see as a nervous habit, it could actually be a good thing.
Hold on. Are you telling me that all my leg bouncing and pen clicking, that's actually good for me?
It could be. Yeah, there's actually some science behind it. Fidgeting, even those like really small movements like tapping your feet or just shifting in your chair, it seems to activate your muscles.
Okay.
It gets that blood flowing a bit. So it's like a tiny workout for your circulatory system. And it kind of counteracts that whole, sitting still for hours thing.
Okay, so I'm not so self-conscious about my fidgeting anymore. I always thought it was just me being impatient.
It might be both.
Right.
But what's cool is that the article kind of hints at like maybe there are other ways, even more unusual ways to kind of sneak movement into your day.
So it's not just about fidgeting. There are other things we can do.
Yeah, and I mean, the article doesn't really get into specifics, but it does make you think like if something is simple and, unintentional as fidgeting can be good for you,
Yeah.
what other kinds of non-exercise movements could we be doing?
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like taking the movements we did as kids and making them, adult friendly.
Yeah.
Like instead of standing around at the water cooler,
Yeah.
what if we did some squats while we chatted?
Exactly.
Or what about ditching the office chair and sitting on one of those like stability balls?
I love that idea. Or imagine, like, instead of just leaning against the wall during a phone call, you could be practicing your balancing skills on one leg.
Right. People might look at you a little funny, but
Yeah.
if it works, it works.
Exactly. It's about making your environment work for you. It's not about finding time for formal exercise. It's about making movement like a natural part of your day,
Yeah.
even in those unexpected moments.
Okay, so we need to rethink movement. It's not a chore. It should just be part of our lives, like
Mhm.
all the time.
And, it's not just about the physical benefits either. The article talks about the mental perks too, like how even short bursts of activity can really boost your mood, focus, creativity.
For sure. When I'm feeling stuck, like creatively, I'll just take a quick walk around the block or even just stretch at my desk. It really helps.
It does, yeah. It all comes back to remembering that our bodies are meant to move.
Yeah.
They're not designed to be stuck in a chair all day.
Okay, so we get it, move more, but how do we actually make this happen? Like, it's one thing to get excited about it, but sticking with it, that's the tough part.
Right, yeah. I think that's where mindfulness comes in.
Yeah.
It's about being aware of how your body feels throughout the day. Once you're more tuned into that, you can start making different choices.
Like setting reminders to get up and stretch every hour.
Exactly.
Or like being mindful of taking the stairs instead of the elevator.
Yeah.
Or even just noticing when you've been sitting too long.
Right, yeah. Like I said, it's about figuring out what works for you. There's no one right answer, so just experiment.
Okay, so what about those people who need a little extra push to get moving? Like what about when motivation alone isn't enough?
That's where habit stacking comes in. It's this idea that you can link a new habit, like taking a movement break, to an existing habit that you already do without thinking.
So like every time I finish a work call, I could do a few stretches.
Exactly.
Or maybe after I brush my teeth, I could do a few squats.
Yeah, you're getting it. By linking a new behavior to something you already do automatically, it kind of takes the pressure off willpower.
That makes a lot of sense.
Uh,
So we've got habit stacking, but sometimes you just need something fun to get you moving.
oh, totally. I mean, if you hate running, don't force yourself to run, right? There are so many options out there. Find something you actually enjoy, like dancing, swimming, rock climbing, whatever.
And there's power in numbers, too. Having a friend to work out with or joining a class, that can help a lot.
For sure. And at the end of the day, it's not about being perfect. It's about making progress. So celebrate those little victories and just remember to have fun.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of different ways to bring more movement into our lives, but how do we make it work when we're like tied to our desks all day? Like, what are some practical things we can do right now?
Let's get into that. The New York Times article has some great tips.
Okay, lay them on us.
Well, first off, I think it comes down to shifting your mindset.
Mindset.
Mm.
So it's not just about adding another workout to my schedule or buying a fancy gadget.
Right. It's more about fundamentally changing the way you view movement. Instead of thinking of it as this thing you have to make time for, what if you try to make it like a natural part of your routine?
Okay, that sounds good in theory, but how do we actually do that, like in real life?
Well, let's think about your average day. Are there any opportunities where you could be moving more? Like, do you always drive? Could you walk or bike instead?
Yeah, that's classic advice, but it's not always possible for everyone.
You're right, but even if you can't, like, completely overhaul your commute, what about parking further away from your destination?
Oh,
Or getting off the bus a stop or two early and walking the rest of the way? Little things like that.
oh, it's all about finding those moments, even if they're small.
Exactly, yeah. And it goes beyond that. Take the stairs instead of the elevator,
Mm.
pace around when you're on the phone,
So,
do some stretches while you're, waiting for your coffee. It all adds up over time.
so many good ideas.
Yeah,
But I gotta admit, sometimes consistency is my biggest challenge. Like, I start out strong, but then life gets in the way.
I hear that. It's a common struggle. We've talked about habit stacking already, and I think that can really help with consistency too.
So, like, every time I finish a work call, I could do 5 minutes of stretching.
Yes.
Or after I brush my teeth, I could do 10 squats.
Exactly.
Okay.
By connecting that new behavior to something you already do, it just becomes part of your routine.
Yeah.
It makes it easier to stick with it. That makes so much sense.
And then sometimes you just need something fun, something to, get you excited about moving.
Right.
If you hate running, don't run. Find something you love. Dancing, hiking, swimming, whatever it is.
And don't forget about the power of community. Like working out with a friend or joining a fitness class, that can make a huge difference.
For sure. And remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about progress.
Yeah.
Celebrate those small wins and just, enjoy moving your body.
Okay, so this has been a real eye-opener. Sitting is definitely not our friend, but there are so many things we can do to fight back
Exactly.
and make movement a bigger part of our lives.
I think the biggest takeaway is that movement shouldn't be a chore.
Right.
It should be something you enjoy, something that celebrates what your body can do. Okay, so that wraps up our deep dive into the world of sitting and moving. We hope you'll learn something new and feel inspired to get up and get moving. Even small changes can make a big difference. Thanks for listening. All right, so we're back and we're ready to actually put all this stuff about movement into action. We've busted those myths about standing desks and we found out, hey, fidgeting might not be so bad after all.
Right.
And we've even talked about bringing back those movements we did as kids.
Yeah.
But the real question is how do we actually move more when our whole world seems designed for sitting?
Yeah, it's a good question, and this article from the New York Times, it actually gives us some pretty good advice. I think it all starts with kind of a mindset shift.
Mindset. So we're not just talking about squeezing in a workout or buying some fancy gadget.
No, not really. It's more about changing the way we think about movement. Instead of seeing it as this separate thing we have to, make time for, what if we just tried to make it part of our day, naturally?
Okay, I like that idea, but how do we actually do that? Give us the goods.
Okay. So, think about your average day. Are there any times when you could be moving more? For example, do you always drive?
Mm-hmm.
Could you maybe walk or bike some places instead?
Yeah, that's the classic advice, but it's not always realistic for everybody.
True. Yeah, you're right. But even if you can't totally change how you get around, what about just parking further away from where you're going?
Okay.
Or, get off the bus a stop or two early and walk the rest of the way.
Yeah, I get it. It's about finding those little opportunities to add in some extra steps.
Exactly. And it can go even further than that, Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Or pace around while you're talking on the phone.
Okay, yeah.
Do some stretches while you're waiting for your coffee to brew. Those little things, they really do add up.
Okay, these are all good tips. But the thing I struggle with is being consistent. I'll start out strong, but then life happens and I fall back into my old habits.
Yeah, the motivation struggle is real. But remember when we talked about habit stacking?
Yeah.
I think that can really help with consistency.
Okay, so every time I finish a work call, I could do 5 minutes of stretching.
Exactly.
Or maybe after I brush my teeth, I could do 10 squats.
There you go. Yeah, by connecting that new habit to something you already do, without even thinking.
Yeah.
It just makes it so much easier to stick with it.
Okay, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. But what about those times when you just need something fun to get you motivated to move?
Oh yeah, for sure. If you hate running, don't force yourself to run, right? There's so many other things you could do.
Yeah.
Find something that you genuinely enjoy, like dancing or hiking or swimming, rock climbing, whatever it is.
Yeah, and don't forget having a friend to work out with
Oh yeah.
or joining a class. That can help a lot too.
It really can. And, at the end of the day, it's not about being perfect.
Yeah.
It's about progress, just celebrate those small wins and find ways to like enjoy moving your body.
This has been awesome. I
Mm.
think we all needed this reminder that sitting too much, it can really mess with our health.
It really can.
But but the good news is there's so much we can do about it.
Exactly. Yeah. And the biggest takeaway for me is that, movement shouldn't be a chore.
Yeah.
It should be something that you actually look forward to, something that makes you feel good.
I love it. All right, well, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of sitting and moving. We hope you learned some new tips and feel inspired to get up and get moving.
Yeah.
Remember, even those small changes can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening, everyone.